Hey guys, what's up? It's Zyflin here, and today we're going to be learning how to play Volt. I was actually really surprised that I hadn't made a how to play Volt video earlier, as he's one of the frames that I play pretty much every single day, and I actually can't, imagine playing Warframe without having a Volt, because he just makes, running the likes of fishers such as Exterminate, Capture, Rescue so much faster. Just missions that, you feel are kind of more of a nuisance than they are fun to play. Volt can make them go by very, very fast. That being said, there's more than just one way to play Volt. So the main way that most people play Volt is for speed, right? Where you hit your second ability and, the animation for you sprinting is so fast that it looks pretty funny, especially if you get a Fisher buff where it buffs up your power strength. It looks pretty insane. But yeah, usually the main selling point behind Volt, or the main reason people think of Volt, is because of his speed buff, at least from my experience. But there is definitely 110% other reasons to play Volt. So his first ability is Shock. Basically, you look at the bad guy, right? Let's spawn some in. You look at the bad guy, you press your first ability, you zap them, deals damage, yada, yada, yada. These are, really heavily armored enemies, so you don't kill them. You'll do, a small CC effect, which is pretty nice, and then you'll end up dying because, they break out of it, and the ability tickles them, so to speak. Then you have your second ability, which is your speed buff, which actually increases your melee attack speed, and it also increases your reload speed as well, so really, really nice. On top of the fact that the movement speed buff is multiplicative, so if you make your base sprint speed super high, and then, stack power strength on for the speed ability, then you can have a super fast movement speed, which is awesome. Then you have the third ability, which is Volt Shield. So you put down a shield, it absorbs incoming damage. If you shoot through the shield, you're going to deal electric damage, and your crit damage is going to be amplified by 2 times. Now, the electric damage bonus can stack up to 6 times, but the crit damage bonus, doesn't matter how many shields you're shooting through, is going to stay at a flat 200% or 2 times, right? So you could stack, 6 Volt Shields, and let's say whenever you shoot through a Volt Shield, right, it gives you 55 electric damage per shield. It would be 55 times by 6, and that would be your total damage output. And then you can further increase the damage that you deal by shooting through the shields in terms of the electric damage by zapping it with your 1, which is pretty cool. But yeah, doesn't matter how many shields you have placed down, the crit buff, or the crit bonus, is always going to stay at a flat 200. Doesn't matter how many you're shooting through. Then you have Volt's fourth ability, which is a hybrid of a crowd control ability and also a damage dealing ability. And depending on the type of content and the level of content you're going up against, should determine what way you should mod that, really. So, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the builds. So this is the first build. This is my speed build. So like I said, get your sprint speed as high as possible base. So combine sprint boost with rush to get a higher base sprint speed, taken up to 1.45. And then you want to get a nice balance between duration and power strength, right? So prone continuity, narrow-minded for your duration, transient fortitude, blind rage, Augur Secrets, Umbral Intensify for your power strength, Lightning Dash for more bullet speed momentum, and Streamline for a little bit of efficiency. And I find that this build hits that perfect balance between being efficient, it takes around, I think, 32 energy per cast of speed, 22 second duration, and a 2.6 times movement speed multiplier, which is really, really insane, given the fact that we have that sprint speed of 1.45, meaning it's probably one of the better speed builds in the game, right? So on top of that, you can combine arcanes, you can use Consequence, or you can use Strike. It really depends what your aim is, right? So for example, if you were to use this speed build in the likes of the Plains of Eidolon or Valis, you may want to consider Arcane Consequence, because that is going to increase the overall fluidity and the feel and the speed of your bullet jumps, kind of like what Lightning Dash does, except it's an Arcane Consequence. Whenever you get a headshot, stack 2 of those, and you're going to be flying super fast through the Plains of Eidolon, through the Valis. But then if you're doing the likes of an Exterminate or a Capture or a Rescue, you're using Spin to Win or Condition Overload, you're going to want to throw an Arcane Strike, because you get that attack speed bonus from your second ability, and then also from Arcane Strike, meaning that you're just going to deal more damage overall, and you're going to go through a lot faster. It's going to feel more fluid, which is going to make playing a speed vault just a lot more enjoyable, at least in my opinion. So yeah, I'll give you guys a look at the stats. So we have 31 energy per speed cast, and we got a duration 22 seconds, speed multiplier 2.6 times, reload speed is increased by 56.35%, which is awesome, but obviously the radius is super low because I neglect range pretty much completely because I don't see the point, because a lot of people complain about having volt speed buff, so I just play selfish volt all the time. But if somebody wants to get it, then I can just, you know, hop up to them and then give them the buff. It's really no big deal because I don't really consider 31 energy to be a high energy cost because we have the likes of Xeneric and energy paths, so But that also being said, I don't use shock, I don't use electric shield, and I don't use discharge. Whenever I'm running this build, it is purely for speed plus like condition overload or a blood rush, body count, maiming strike, melee build, right? So that's pretty much all I use, and then maybe the Archiplasma or shotgun because this thing is great at just clearing crowds. I almost said clouds. Good job, me. But yeah, moving on to other ways to play vaults. The second most sought after way, at least from my experience, would be an Eidolon build. So that would refer back to the electric shield bonus or buffs that I was talking about. So it's all about having a lot of duration and having a lot of efficiency, so you can just throw out shield after shield after shield, so then you and your team can use them to increase the critical damage of your operator's amp. So you'd be using a 223 amp, right? And you'd be using the alt fire, but you would be shooting through the vault shield at the crotch of the Eidolon to, well, one, make the explosion deal damage twice, and then obviously this shield is amplifying the critical damage, right? So you're using the alt fire because it has a higher critical chance opposed to the regular fire on this. So this is, I think, the highest crit chance firing mode on any amp combination you can put together. But then again, I'm not too sure of the absolute 110% statistics. So you don't need to stack up the vault shields for that. You just need to be shooting through the one. It's only for that critical damage buff. You can't add electric damage to your operator's amp as far as I'm aware. So, but then whenever it comes to helping out your chroma player, right, you're going to want to stack those 6 shields. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then zap it with your 1. And then that is going to amplify the overall damage that your chroma player is dealing if they're shooting through the shield. So you want to kind of like jump away from the Eidolon and place those at a distance, but also give your chroma player a nice view of the Eidolon, right? So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I just look at the ground and then mark where you have the shields, right? That would be what I would recommend to do as a vault player, right? So you can combine that with the fact that also on this build, I've left a slot here, so natural talent. You can replace this with the likes of Shock Trooper, which you can cast on your chroma player to increase the overall damage, and that would be equal to the amount of power strength you have on. So if I were to equip Shock Trooper and use my 1 on my chroma player, that player would have 100% extra damage or extra electric damage applied, which would stack into their radiation damage, right? Because electric plus fire is what makes radiation, so it would just amplify that damage further, okay? So you can also replace Coaction Drift with Power Drift, and then that would mean you would give them 115%, so it's really down to you what you want to do. Coaction Drift is just on here because I go into groups that don't have corrosive projection, so having Coaction Drift on there makes my corrosive projection a little bit more effective, meaning the Eidolon just becomes an easier kill, right? So it's all about stacking duration. It's about having a lot of efficiency, so Streamline plus Fleeting, 1 from the top each to get that 175%, so the 75% bonus, combining the 50 and 25. Narrow-Minded plus Constitution for that duration, and as well as Prime Continuity. Vitality for health, so I don't get obliterated. Prime Flow to have a nice stockpile of energy, and then my Curse Projection Aura to resist enemy armor, 2 times Arcane Nullifier, so then whenever the Eidolon does this big roar, I don't lose all of my energy, and I can see just fine, like my HUD, because it gets scrambled. So yeah, but moving on from that, we're going to be talking about Vault's Discharge Build, right? So the 4th ability. Now, like I mentioned, you can either build it for crowd control, which would be this build, right? Or you could build it for damage. Now, versus armored enemies, not worth it at all. So let's spawn in level 60, right? 60 would be tier 1 sortie. Pause the AI. You don't get a damage bonus from pausing the AI. and we'll use our 4th ability. These guys are armored. We do not deal a lot of damage. It's okay damage, but it's not going to kill them within the one cast. It takes about a quarter of their health away, and it doesn't even reach all... Okay, maybe it does. Did it reach those guys? It did. Okay, so it's not got the biggest range in the world, but, you know, let's go ahead and take a look at the range, actually. 47 meters, which isn't bad, but you have to do a lot of, like, counteracting with the way you mod, right? Because you have overextended on here, which is going to reduce your ability strength. So throwing on Transient Fortitude, throwing on Umbral Intensify, all that is necessary, and you're going to have to take hits somewhere. So, for example, I don't have any health mods on here because, you know, I wouldn't have enough room to mod for that, right? So that's a big old letdown. But Streamline on here for casting efficiency, it's not maxed out because, again, I don't have enough space, right? But then again, I'm running, what's it called, Fleeting one from the top and Streamline one from the top. I could max it out, and I could, like, completely neglect using Fleeting, and that would make my my cast a lot longer. But it's really down to you. Like, what I could do is I could replace Fleeting for Augur Secrets, for example, and run a maxed out Streamline. That would be an option too. But yeah, it's all about having enough duration on the build, having enough strength, and then also having enough range. So it's a hard balance to kind of keep, but whenever you do hit the balance, it's good for, I want to say, mid-range content. Like, for example, Corpus Tex, if we kill all these guys, spawn in Corpus Tex, I'm pretty sure these guys would die from one cast. So let's go ahead and take a look, right? Let's see. They should die. Yeah, they all die from one cast. So apart from that guy, he thinks he's a badass. And that guy. For some reason, one of them doesn't die. I kind of think of the one that survives as kind of like the conductor. Like the first one that gets hit, and then it just conducts onto the other enemies. So I don't know. But keep that in mind whenever I show the CC build, because that's kind of how that works, right? So if we move on to the CC build, which is more or less the same thing, except you just don't have any strength. A little bit more duration, a lot more range, and more efficiency. Spawn in the heavy gunners, right? Like so. Simulate. And what you're going to want to do is cast, and then just as the duration of your 4 runs out, that's when you recast, right? So whenever your 4 duration gets to about 1.5 seconds left, cast again. So pay attention, right? So you deal very low damage numbers, but whenever you get to 1.5 seconds, that's when you want to cast it again. Reach out to the enemies and put them in the stun loop. Because if you cast too early, it doesn't refresh the stun duration, and they're just going to come out, and you're going to have to wait for your ability to cooldown before you can cast it. Because it has like a short time in between whenever you cast, and then whenever you can cast again. So it stops you from just spamming it over and over and over again, and like stunning every single enemy that spawns in the map, right? So that's important to note. It can definitely rack up damage, but it's not the best CC ability in the world. You'd be better off using the likes of Rhino Stump, but it's all about showing players kind of what options they have, right? So you can use them as a nuker, you can use them as a CC'er, you can use them as a speed buff, or you can just use them as a buffer, right? That's kind of Vault's rules in, not endgame, but just overall in Warframe, right? He's just one of those frames which is really, really versatile, and I 110% recommend having a Vault. If not Vault, then Vault Prime in your inventory. You don't have to copy my Umbral builds. You can go out of your way to find other builds which don't include Umbral mods. But other than that, guys, that is going to be it for the video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button below. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.